And hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host, Coach Helix. With me, my amazing co host,
Stephen Frederick is in the house.
Stephen the medium, Stephen, my husband, Stephen, my better part of everything, is
Thank
in the
you.
house. And Stephen, today we celebrate Black History Month, and which is a time for all of us to honor brilliance, resilience, creativity, leadership, and that undeniable cultural impact of Black communities across the globe. But today's conversation is going to be more than just remembrance. It's really going to be a call to collective courage. And that is because we still live in a world where racism, discrimination, marginalization still affect Black, Latino, and the queer community that Stephen and I are part of. So recently, we talked about it last week. We were inspired by the message shared at the halftime show. The only thing more powerful than hate is love. So today, Stephen and I are going to explore what that really means, not sentimentally, not superficially, but as a way to embody what it is, as a way to really put it into practice as a principle. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Hold on to your horses, because before we do that, we have to talk to Stephen about life. So, Stephen, this is where you take, and let's begin with the obvious. Another storm is coming, and I'm blaming Stephen for all of it because he keeps wishing for more snow. So, you got anything to say about that, Stephen?
Not no, no, not really. But listen, you're acting and talking like you don't like it, and you do. You also like the winter, and I can't. I'm not controlling anything. If we get snow, we get snow, and I always say to everybody that people that don't like snow is I feel very blessed because I love all four seasons, but I particularly love winter. So for people that just want to complain and doesn't change anything about
No,
the snow
that's
or winter in the cold. But listen, if you have a choice to love it and go through this winter like happy, I mean, I think most of you will pick that. So it's all good.
well. I would agree with you. That still doesn't mean that I don't get to say, listen, I don't mind it, but within reason. I think we've had plenty of snow. I think we could close the season and say, oh my God, what a marvelous
Oh,
winter
police.
season. Let's head on to the spring. No, you are looking for another foot of snow
Yes.
because you're like, I call you a polar bear.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the difference. I'm balanced. I think I'm with you though. Having said all of that, I still agree with you. At the end of the day, look, it is what it is, and we have a choice. We complain or we embrace it the way it is. So right now, I'm embracing that we're not gonna get another big storm.
Well, maybe we won't. You never know. These tracks are a little crazy, so maybe we won't. Maybe we will. All I know is that living here, on Cape Cod or New England, we're blessed because we get the appreciation when it's done. We really appreciate spring and then into summer, whereas it's always that way. I know people, don't have to deal with the winter, but they don't have an appreciation like we do. It's a different perspective, and I love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Anything else you need to say
About the
about
snow?
life? Well, about everything. How else? What else would you like to share with our listeners today that can inspire them to embrace life exactly the way it is and exactly the way it is?
Well, you know what? Inside info. So on every Friday, whether we're doing your show or which is next Friday is my show through the Static, right? It's the last Friday
Yes.
of the month.
Yes.
Before the show starts at 1 p.m., I always am doing what is called whispers in a note. every single Friday. It's Fridays of the day I open them up on my calendar, and they always, every time I open them, they get booked. Like, so, I usually open 2 up per Friday just to make a Friday a more downtime, because really the only day I don't do readings is Sunday. So Fridays are kind of great because, I'm just doing the whispers, and the whispers in a note are, it's a service I provide through my website, and it is it's a different kind of reading. So if you go on my website, you can select whether you want a note. It's really like a note from the universe, or a note from heaven, or a note from wherever you believe your loved ones in spirit are. And you can select it for yourself. You can select it for a gift. And you can also select the connection family-wise. So I don't ask for names, clearly. I just want to know, do you want it from your mother, your father, your grandmother, your pet? Or you can open it up and just say from anybody. And I do meditate, and then I ask for, if you want your father, like the one I just did. I have to do 2. I've done 1. It was for a woman, for her, or from her mom. So I just asked the mom to step forward. She stands next to me, and she starts dictating to me what she wants me to write in this note. And it's really cool because you also have an option to upload a picture. So this is a gift that someone's sending, and they included the girl that's getting it, her mother's picture, which is so wild. So when you open up, you get this email saying, excitement, or like, great news, your whisper in a note's ready. And when you open it up, it not only has the note scanned in, but you have me in a video that I record, and it goes through the whole note. And then I send you the note off in the physical note into, like, wherever you live if you want it. But that's what I do. So I thought maybe people want to know, what does Stephen actually do Friday mornings?
Well, but you said inside info. Is that the inside info? I'm waiting here. Like,
what inside info?
You said at the beginning, inside info. Every Friday I do.
Well, inside info, like, of what I do in the morning. Like, people don't know that. So that's inside information.
Oh, I was here.
Come on. Did you think I was going to just, like, drop a bomb?
Well, no, I'm here sitting at the edge of my seat, waiting and waiting, and this is how you talk all the time. So I'm like thinking, he's explaining the note, and somehow, sometime today, he'll tell us exactly.
That's the way I talk all the time. Seriously,
you do.
Seriously,
yeah, you do.
That's inside information, Elix. People don't know what I do Friday mornings. That's what I do. So every Friday I got to do notes, and every Friday I say, all right, I'm going to have these notes written, and I'm going to have them recorded, and I'll get ready to send them in the afternoon. And every Friday that doesn't happen. So clearly, one's written. It's not recorded yet. The other one's not been written. So when we finish the show, I have to do the second. I got to record both, and I got to send them out. So, but I actually love doing them. They're really cool. That you just get this email saying great news, your whisper's ready. And sometimes people get a gift and like, what's a whisper? So, and you click it, it pops up, and you have me live, just recorded. But I do a live recording and go through the whole note and tell you what your mom or dad or dog or cat are feeling. And it's really, I love it. And I actually created it. I came up with not only the name Whisper in a Note, but I found software to do it, or to what I use. And people love it.
Yeah, and so that explains, validates that you're not just a pretty face. You're pretty smart, and you definitely know what you're doing. So,
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. What else? What else is going on? I know you're working on a new promo. Are you ready to tell people what that is, or not yet?
Well, yeah, it's not on my website yet, but the promo for a limited time is going to be for people that, I do this all the time, but people that want to do a group reading with me, a group event at their house or home, and it has to be a minimum of 10 people with a max of 15. But the special is that whoever is hosting the event doesn't pay anything, that their fee is waived. So you just have me come over, you have your friends come over, you pay nothing. How's that? Yeah. And you get a reading. Everyone gets a reading, by the way.
And they get to meet me because I often come along.
You do.
I sit in the background. I may enjoy a glass of wine while I'm listening. So
Sure.
that's a
All
plus.
of the above, Elix. It's great. So,
Exactly. All a plus. By the way, Stephen, I also wanted to do a shout out to our producer, Mark. He was here last week. He's not here today. He, I spoke to him. He told me he wasn't feeling well. He's recovering. He has an injury he's recovering from. But I also think, Stephen, that our producer, Dave, who's doing the show today, I don't know. I think there's something happened and he just injured Mark so that he could take over again because he just can't be without us.
as my mother would say, she thinks Dave had his hands in the cookie jar. Just
I
saying.
believe so.
Just
I don't
saying.
know what I don't
Yeah.
know what exactly was in the cookie jar, but I believe Dave he's definitely had his hands in the cookie jar. So,
Yeah.
but hey, Mark Clark, a shout out,
Yes.
heal,
We
get
love Mark.
better. We love you, and we certainly hope to see you next week for Steven's show. Anything else, Steven? Anything else going on? Anything else that we should be sharing with our listeners before we take our first break?
Well, let me just answer it this way. Not yet. There's some things that are coming up, but mum's the word, baby. Not yet. So,
But there's some pretty awesome, awesome, awesome
oh
things.
yes.
For those of
Yes,
you
yes,
who've been
yes.
following us for a long time, you'll be celebrating with Steven and I. So if you're not following us, that's your cue to find Steven the Medium on Coach Helix and follow us because something real big is coming down the pipeline. So with that
Real
said,
big.
you know what else is coming down the pipeline? I think it's
A
time
commercial.
we do need to take a commercial break. So let's do that, and we'll be right back. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host, Coach Helix, and with me, my amazing co host,
Stephen the Medium.
Stephen the Medium, who is also my amazing husband. And today, our theme is the only thing more powerful than hate. It's love, and we're celebrating Black History Month also as a call to collective courage. I'll tell you, Stephen, when we celebrate Black History Month, uh, for me personally, we're not just celebrating pain, we're honoring contribution, we're honoring culture, innovation, art, leadership, and the courage of people who thrive in systems that are not designed for them. And celebration is really not a denial of injustice, it's a defiance against erasure. And that really does matter. And for me personally, as a Puerto Rican man whose heritage includes Taino, African, and Spanish roots, I personally cannot separate my story from the global story of race and identity because I carry African ancestry in my blood. I carry colonization in my history. I carry resilience in my culture. So when I celebrate Black History Month, it's not really an abstract. For me, it's quite personal. And I think of Black Puerto Ricans that have shaped who we are in profound ways. One of them, you may know, is Roberto Clemente, who is, one of the most historic sports figures of baseball from Puerto Rico, not only as an extraordinary athlete, but as a humanitarian who modeled dignity, courage, and service. He actually died in a plane crash while he was delivering humanitarian aid to another country, and his legacy, certainly lives far beyond baseball. And I think these figures remind us that Black identity, at least in my Puerto Rican culture, is not peripheral. It is foundational. It lives in our music, in bomba, plena, salsa, reggaeton, and you guys got to experience a lot of that during last week's Super Bowl halftime show. So it lives in our activism, it lives in our scholarships, and it lives in our leadership. So for me, again, celebrating Black History Month is about honoring that lineage of brilliance and refusing to let it be minimized. It's about visibility, it's about our dignity, and it is about acknowledging that these contributions are not footnotes in our history, they are pillars, Stephen. So, what about for you, Stephen? You bring a whole different perspective, and I do want to get into love and what that means, and uh, collectively for all of us. But I'm really curious. First of all, what when you celebrate Black History Month, which you do celebrate, what does that mean for you? And from a spiritual perspective, how do you or how would you help us define that collective resilience that that is part of what we celebrate when we think about Black History Month?
Well, you know what? I think based on what's going on, I don't look at it. It's sort of like what we talked last week about Valentine's Day. I honestly, I get why there's Black History Month, of course, which is a wonderful thing. But based on what's going on, I don't look at it as it's just February. It's like every single day when we get into March or when we're in January, it's all the time because of what's been happening in this country with Black and brown people. It's a whole different perspective. This year has changed, or since last January, this has changed everything, right? It's completely changed, and I don't mean that in a comparison to the years and years ago. I just mean in this lifetime, right? From what sort of like what we've experienced, it's completely different and changed, and from my perspective also, which a lot of people may not think about or so, but I was thinking about the subject of this show. When I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island, in a very nice suburb, and I honestly don't think I ever had an interaction with a Black or brown person until high school. My neighborhood wasn't like it was. My neighborhood was all white. I went to a private Catholic school that was all white a private Catholic school up into 8th grade. So that was all white, and it was never. There was no opinion on it just wasn't around to me. It was just, I lived my life and that was it. There was no other color for me but white. That's just the way it was. And I'm not saying like if we went out with my mom when we were kids or went to a store or something, I get that. But I'm just saying my daily interaction with my neighbors, with my friends, that's the way it was. And then in high school, um, even high school was predominantly white. It was another Catholic school, but there were some African Americans and also Latinos in my grading class, and so it's evolving, Elix. It's just evolving because you come from a place like that, and I never really thought twice about any of it. It was just my life, right? And then you start opening your eyes and go to college like I did, and went to law school, and of course, there's a whole amazing mix of every kind of person there now or then, and that's a beautiful thing. And then you sort of fast forward to where we are now, and it is a mouth dropping perspective of just what's happening. And I mean, it just is. So I don't look at it like a February thing anymore. I look at it as an everyday thing, starting with the again perspective of when I walk through a store or I'm outside or a mall or whatever the case may be, I have a completely different way maybe I'm looked at or treated because I'm just a white guy. And not even getting into that I'm a minority being gay, but I am white. I mean, and that's something that, I've always had with me, but because of what's going on, it is so, I don't know, it's magnified now of understanding the white privilege, and now looking at the whole perspective of people, and especially black and brown people, and how difficult and scary this is.
Yeah. Stephen, you could not have said it better. And it's interesting because I'm listening to you and I'm saying to myself, yeah, duh. That's sort of like goes without question. Because we've been practicing the art of really embracing us, embracing what we believe, embracing our identities, not as a one day thing or a special thing, but as an everyday thing. Having said that, however, I think celebrating the month for other people who are not who don't have the same or don't know how to embrace the same concepts as you and I have, right? Because they don't think the way we think. I think celebrating Black history, as an example, opens the door to the broader conversation because racism, discrimination, they're not isolated experiences. They intersect across communities, whether Black, Latino, queer, immigrants, indigenous. Yeah, we all have different stories. We've all lived different realities, yet we have similar patterns of exclusion and silencing. And for me, the question becomes, how do we build solidarity without erasing our differences? How do we stand together while honoring each other's unique story, right? Anchoring ourselves in that principle of love, because that is what I believe, Stephen. What is that's what I've learned from you. It's anchoring in the principle of love because that requires courage. In love as a principle, not as an idea, not as a have to, but as a principle, something that we are embodying, not a doing thing, but embodying it. You know what I'm saying, Stephen?
Yes, of course.
Anything, when let me ask you this, because the conversation around love we've had that conversation often. How do we use that as a way to bring others into this conversation, Stephen? How would you do that, especially in your world? You get access to understanding the world from a spiritual perspective in a way that many of us do not. What would you give us as an offering?
I think one of the I would start with this, that I don't know, maybe about a year ago I was getting ready to meditate because I had like a full day of readings here at home, and I was eating breakfast and I was on my phone and I looked at or the news. I can't remember if it was TV or not, but I do remember there was some clip about these boys beating up this other boy solely because of being poor, like just not looking the way they do, as well as being an African American, and just like it didn't show the graphics, but it was sort of blurred out, and it just showed that this kid was getting beat up just because of what he looked like. End of story. So I remember I was just looking at it like just like oh my god, and I went to meditate. And I remembered towards the end of the meditation, I was just sort of like in spirit. And I still to this day don't know who these entities were, but there were two guys, what looked like guys. And I remember they brought me back to that clip, but watched it with me. And I remember it was profound, and I will never forget it because both of them were looking. I watched the conversation between the both of them, and now they're in spirit saying, like, what, like, sort of. I'm going to try to interpret the way best I can in what the physical, us being in the physical world, what would make sense. It's not necessarily what it would be like in spirit because it's just love there. But let me just give you like my best interpretation of these two looking at each other, like when the kids, the white kids, ultimately come up here in spirit, years from now or whenever they're ready to, well, they're going to pass away. That's the universe's plan. What a rude awakening they're going to get. The fact that they're behaving this way because of the way someone looks is it's so ridiculous, and it's such a joke, and it's so idiotic. Now again, that's not what they said, but I'm just trying to interpret it because it's the best I can do. And just looking like, do these fools not know that up here there's no such thing as black or white or brown? There's no such thing. There's no such thing at all, because these are bodies. These are bodies, these vehicles that we use to move through this physical world. And when we die, we're going back up wherever you believe that is, and there's no bodies. It's love and it's spirit. It's your soul. And that it was profound. And as I just mentioned, it was, I remember finishing the meditation and was just in tears of thinking, oh my God, oh my God. I mean, and that's why I posted, that recent post about, listen, where spirit is, it's all love. Where we are, it's so much hate. They just can't coincide forever. Something's got to give, because their spirit is looking at us when there's all this discrimination, like almost like, what the heck are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, it was, that's what I would start, Elix.
Yeah. Well, and you know what we're doing right now? We are taking a commercial break, but when we come back, Stephen, I want to keep diving further into this conversation, as it is a conversation that can really help all of us step into being that very best version of ourselves in a world of love, not hate. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elex. I'm your host, Coach Elex, and with me, my amazing husband and co-host,
Attorney Masick is here.
Steven the Medium, also. Today's conversation, today's theme is the only thing more powerful than hate. It's love, and we're celebrating Black History Month, and also making a call for collective courage in action. And Stephen, we're talking about the power of love and, how spirit sees love and, hate in categories versus how we see it. But the question that I have for you, Stephen, as I was listening to you, it made me wonder, what is the cost, the spiritual cost of hate, and what happens energetically to us collectively when we embrace hate versus love?
That's a big question. So there's, I don't think there's a cost in reference to when we cross over, because in the universe, in heaven, in again, wherever you believe we go, it is just pure love, right? So that doesn't make any sense that it would be a cost if it's just love, right? So when we get there, it is love. That doesn't mean that if you are, someone that just devours hate and just has hatred all through your life, or like someone who, God forbid, murders somebody or something like that. That doesn't mean that they're scot-free in spirit. There's from what spirit has told me, there's it's like almost like schools that you have to go through to be sort of forced to look and see how you behaved and what you did here in the physical world. So and you stay there learning, and that it's a very, very long sort of a process. So I don't think that cost is big. The cost really is big here, because
that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
because the energy, we're all energy. I just finished saying before we went to break that when we get into spirit, that whole experience I had with meditating and those two entities, or those two guys in spirit, we're really saying when we get there, there's nothing but energy, right? Same thing here. Even though you think we're bodies, because we are, right? I mean, when we look at people, you see physical bodies, and everyone, I get that, and everyone sees the bodies because we all use the five senses. But what's really important is the energy that is created by that personality. And if you're coming from a place of hatred, that is going to show up every step of the way on your journey. You can pretend, you can say, no, it's not. I'm good. I have a good life. No. You can't. You just can't, because that energy is not just about you. That energy is what you attract. That energy is what what is being pulled towards you or in you, or around you. A good analogy is if you buy, say, a container of blueberries, and one of those blueberries starts getting fungus, it starts going bad, what's going to happen is every blueberry around that is going to start doing the same thing. So that really is what happens if you're negative. Now, if you see that one blueberry and you catch it quickly and you pull it out, you then stop that from happening, for at least temporarily, because obviously they're blueberries, right? But you do stop that. You stop that right in its track, and that is pulling out that blueberry that's going bad, is pulling out that person that has that, negative energy based on hatred, and the rest of that bin or container, if you will, with the blueberries doesn't. So
I mean, that is an ongoing practice, right, Stephen? It's a moment by moment.
It's a moment by moment, Elix, and it's also, I'm not like saying we have to be like Pollyanners at all. I'm just saying
that's why I'm saying.
Yeah, we all fall. We all have mistakes. We all are in a certain place, and then we get better. The point of what Spirit tells me all the time is that when we're born, our goal is to not only figure out our meaning and, our purpose and passion, but it's also to continuously grow and get better and better. And there's always a little theme of just helping people, just helping, whether it's one person, it's collectively, like a group. There's always some theme in there that sort of, as you go through this journey, if you will, too, that you just always keep that in mind, that you always have something in the back of your head of, how can I help? If that means, just you get out once a day and you smile at a stranger, that's helping. That's what this is all about. But you have to have grace too, because we all fall and we all revert back. You and I have talked about our experiences, our lives, and God only knows how many times I have fallen back based on a habit of how I used to be. And so you have to give yourself grace. As long as you can get back up and just brush yourself off and move forward, that's what life is really supposed to be about.
Yeah, and it is also a reminder that it's easy to say that love is powerful. It's harder to practice love when conversations become uncomfortable, when injustice feels heavy for us personally, when division feels really, loud for us. That's why love as embodiment, as a principle, is very, very different, because, that is what's going to allow us to choose dignity in disagreement, right? Or accountability with compassion, or choosing to protect someone's humanity even when the room feels divided. And I also reminded from a neuroscience perspective, which is, the field that I practice, it tells me that belonging regulates our nervous system. So when we feel safe, we listen. When we feel threatened, we defend. So anchoring in love is certainly a way to anchor your nervous system, to listen, to be present, to be available. And then the other thing, Stephen, before we go into another commercial break, out of curiosity, and of course we're talking about Black History Month, and I talked about our ancestors, right? And for me, I think about those Black Puerto Ricans ancestors who, what they did, what they survived, created opening for me to have the life that I have right now. What would you say from your spiritual experience? What message might our ancestors be sharing with us about unity right now?
Well, you know what? It's interesting, Elix, because if there's messages, which of course there always are when I do readings, along the lines of what you're asking, and of course it's always, if there's the subject is brought up or there's messages or guidance for the person I'm reading, obviously somebody in spirit who I'm talking to is always going to be relating those messages from their physical experience, because it's very interesting, as I just mentioned. When I go into spirit and I'm starting to do my thing and read people, whether it's a different language, whether it's different color skin, I don't see any of that, because there's no such thing up there as that, right? It's energy. So they're not, someone will say to me, well, my grandmother only spoke Portuguese, and Stephen, you don't know Portuguese, so how are you going to communicate? But there's no difference. It doesn't matter if they spoke not one word of English. I don't know Portuguese. I can still, communicate, because it's not, it's energy, right? It's downloaded energy wise. But when they do bring something up that's in regards to here, specifically for the person I'm reading, because they're still in the physical world, so many times, Elix, I get, like when I'm talking to somebody and spirit will bring up maybe they are a nurse, or I'll say, who's a nurse? And they'll look at me and say, I am. And they will jump on that. Spirit will jump on that, because it may have been like one of the first family members that either went to college or, became a nurse and passed the boards. They bring that up in such a applauding way, and just so happy and so excited, like, their ancestors come through and just are just so proud of the person that they accomplish that. Whatever it could be, somebody who had a drinking problem and now is sober. They'll bring that up, and just it's just how proud they are, knowing, and will actually tell me to tell them they know how difficult it is in this physical world to get rid of that, or sort of defeat, on a daily or a minute basis, something like substance abuse, right? So that's where they come from. It's just always coming from a place, again, of love, and it's coming from a place of bravo or brava to the people I'm reading.
Wow. That is awesome. Stephen, let's take another break. When we come back, I want to talk about collective love. So, but let's take a break first. Hang in there. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host, Coach Helix, and with me, my amazing co-host, Stephen the Medium.
Stephen the Medium.
There you go. I was worried that you had disappeared. But anyways, today we are talking, our theme is the only thing more powerful than hate is love, as we celebrate Black History Month. And we're talking about love and the collective power of all of us together. And Stephen, when I think about that, I don't know if you remember back in 2020, 21, when we were in the midst of COVID, and we did a program with David Magone. It was like a virtual yoga. And I remember when we did it, you said that you felt like a wave, a collective way of healing, right? Happening in that moment. And I'm paraphrasing. You can better explain what it is that you meant. But that brings me to, thinking about how does collective love create healing across generations? Because I could argue that what we felt last weekend during that halftime show was also collective love. That felt palpable for me. So how does that collective love, unity can create healing across generations.
Well, it was, Elix. I mean, I used the word shift when the two of us watched the halftime show. There was, at the end of it, I felt a shift because of the collective love that everybody that was loving this and got the message about, love is stronger than hate. Everybody at the same time across this globe were all in it together. That's the collective, and that shifts and changes the earth, the world, people on so many levels, which is pretty amazing, to a point that, I mean, I don't know it all, and none of us do, but the little I do know is so impressive, because when we did that yoga, there was, I don't know, about probably 15, 20, 30, I don't know, it was all virtual, right? So
it was like a very large group of people. Yes.
Yeah, so you could, it was like a Zoom, so you could, we had it on the big screen TV, and Elix and I were, had our yoga mats. We were in our living room, because it was, as Elix said, COVID. I had never done yoga before, and this was just like you said, like 2020, 2021, something like that. And I remember at the end of that, the instructor said, let's all at the same time take a deep breath in, and we're going to send a, collective, and this was because of what was going on with the virus and COVID, we're going to send a collective ball of healing energy because of what's going on. And, I maybe we were instructed to close our eyes. I think so. I know I did, Elix did, and we took a deep breath in. And the moment everyone exhaled, it was like I was on a cloud. All of a sudden, I felt this energy below me, and in my third eye, I was on the top of this energy ball that everyone just did in that group collectively, and I got to ride it like a wave. I got to ride this wave. It went right out we had a bay window where this was our previous house. It was the previous house, so it was 2020. So it went right out the bay window, and it just in seconds, maybe 1 second, went around the entire world. I remember just like knowing I was above Greece, and then I remember I was like somewhere in Africa, and I mean, I know I'm comparing, continents and countries, but that's just what was happening. And then I remember just swinging a whole circle and then just plopping back here, and thought, oh my God, this is what, 15, 20, 25 people that collectively just did this? Oh my God, I can't imagine now what just happened in the halftime, because there's so many more people, millions. It was the most watched halftime show. What that just did, and was so needed. So,
yeah, and that Stephen, that speaks to the power of collective courage, collective unity, if you will. So what would you say, Stephen, is a practice that we could offer our listeners, that may want to join in that collective unity, a practice that can anchor us in love, a practice that can help us recalibrate when we have those moments where we feel that threat, right, that fear. What would you say is something that we could offer our listeners?
I think that's a simple one, and it's an easy one, and it all comes down to gratitude. Because gratitude it's just another way of saying, collective love, or gratitude's another way of saying love, right? So when a practice is once a day, before you go to bed, during the day, like before you get up, is just even picking one thing that you're grateful for. You could do it at nighttime and before you go to sleep, and pick one thing that you're grateful for that happened today, and just going through that process, and really, because going through the process is okay. I'm so grateful for the woman I work with, in my department or so, who has been out on maternity leave for, I don't know, 3-4 months or so, came back today. And I'm so grateful I got to see her, because she's just so positive and she's so energetic, and it was just so great to see her. I mean, that's just one example. But when you think that, when you go through that process, and that process that thought can take 10 seconds, you are pulling into You're acknowledging, what you're grateful for, and you're pulling into that collective consciousness of love.
Yeah, I love that, by the way. And I love that you say gratitude. I actually use gratitude in my practice, in the courses that I lead. I do a lot of neuroscience work, and part of my training is helping people activate that part of the brain where trust actually lives, because that's where reasoning, lives at. That's the part of the brain that helps us make better decisions, be better people, be better leaders. And people often say, well, what's one thing I can do that can help me, open up that part of the brain, right? Quickly, easily. And I say, practice gratitude. Gratitude opens up, it's called the prefrontal cortex or the executive brain, our newer brain. That's where reasoning lives, better decision making, innovating capabilities. When somebody says, I want to be the best version of me, the only way you can be the best version of you is by activating, having that brain being in command in one simple way that you immediately can activate that part of the brain is through gratitude. And gratitude is available to all of us, and it's available no matter the conditions, no matter what is going on. You could be going through the worst, very worst time of your life, and inside the very, very worst, there's always a place for gratitude. There's always, always. You just have to look for it, but there always is. And I give the example of, when I lost my mom here, right? What's worse than losing a mom? But in that moment, I found myself being grateful for the opportunity for having her there with me, not having gotten that phone call, not being away in depth. So again, gratitude is super, super, super important. From my perspective, so you offer gratitude, I would also say, Stephen, forgiveness. Forgiveness is give you a direct access to love. And forgiveness is not easy, but we already said practicing love, embodying love, is not easy. It's not supposed to be easy because we're not talking about, saying I love you to someone. We're talking about being that embodiment as a principle. So I would say forgiveness. Practice that. So, just let go and practice forgiveness. Practicing forgiveness does not necessarily mean you have to have a conversation with anyone. You actually can forgive without having that conversation. You just have to truly forgive in your heart. And that also creates that opening for pure love. And if we did that collectively, I can only imagine what that wave would look like, Stephen. What are your thoughts, Stephen?
I love that. I love the gratitude and forgiveness. And I was thinking when you were explaining, the neuroscience about what it does to your brain because you're the expert. I was thinking to myself, what's parallel to what you just explained in the science world? What's parallel is when you do some kind of exercise of gratitude in the spirit world. What it really does is it opens the portal to spirit. So you're just being more connected to your loved ones in spirit or your higher power.
I love, love, love that. So we are at the top of the hour, but I want to close with this. Just a reminder. Black History Month is about celebration. It's also about responsibility. Hate is loud, division is often visible, but love has always endured. Never forget that. Love built movements, love preserved cultures, love sustained communities when systems have failed those communities year after year. The only thing more powerful than hate, it's love. I thank Pat Bonnie for that. And, what does it mean for you to anchor yourself in love, not just as a thing to do, but as a principle, like I said earlier? Not when it's easy, not when it's something that, you get rewarded for, or, But when it matters most, choose love in your relationships, choose love in your language, choose love in how you protect your dignity. Because love as a principle never, ever weakens us. It actually strengthens us. So until next time, celebrate boldly, stand firmly in your identity, and stay in the conversation. And Stephen, how do people get a hold of you if they want to see you, if they want to get a whisper in a note, make a group reading? How can they find you?
They can find me by Stephen the Medium. That's my website. That's everything on social media. Just type in Stephen the Medium. And also don't forget that next Friday is when I take over in my show Through the Static. So get ready to party next Friday.
That's right. I was going to say, and you can find Stephen right here next Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can find me at Coach Elex anywhere on social media. If you don't follow me, please start following me. And again, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Dave, our producer.
Thank you, Dave.
For being here. And Mark, I hope Dave allows you to come back next week. See you then. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.